If you're a fan of LEGO Technic, or of building spaceships in Kerbal Space Program, you're going to want to take a look at Besiege. Besiege can be thought of as a tower offense game with vehicle building elements. In each level, you have to build a vehicle and then use said vehicle in order to accomplish a goal. For example, in one level it might be necessary to roll a large ball of iron into a specific area for capture. In another level, your goal might be to demolish a windmill, or to destroy an army, or possibly to do a combination of these things. What makes Besiege interesting is that the game doesn't care how you get these things done, so long as they happen. You can build a vehicle that completely falls apart after it's accomplished its goal, so long as it's accomplished the goal. If I were in charge of giving Besiege a subtitle, it would have to be by any means necessary, because that's your goal in the game. Accomplish whatever the game tells you to do by any means necessary. At current, Besiege is not a completed game. There are several areas in the game that are not available to access. That said, Besiege is very satisfying in its current condition. At the time of this video's creation, Besiege is currently selling for $6.99 on Steam, and the developers have been making fine progress with it. Visually, the game is incredibly appealing. Besiege has this very interesting sort of look. It's reminiscent of tilt-shift photography. Now, in case you're not familiar with tilt-shift, it's basically a way of taking pictures that makes everything look miniature. In addition to having a cute aesthetic, Besiege also makes very good use of color. Everything, from the game's slightly cartoony textures to the explosions, look fantastic. Besiege is one of the best looking unfinished games I've played in a long time. It's in large part the aesthetic of Besiege that imparts to the game the feeling of playing with LEGO, albeit incredibly dangerous LEGO that might burst into flame. The objects in the environments are also destructible, meaning that your death machine might be stopped by a tree, or it might knock said tree over, set it ablaze, and subsequently cause a forest fire, which could win the level for you if your goal was to destroy. On the subject of fire, do be careful when using the flamethrower. It is rather easy at this point to accidentally set yourself ablaze by setting a structure on fire, and then driving triumphantly over said structure, only to realize that you're setting yourself on fire. This has happened to me. Also, it would be a crime to talk about Besiege and fail to mention fantastic vehicle building user interface. I'm not sure if it's because of my experience with Kerbal Space Program, or from when I used to do 3D modeling as a hobby, but building the vehicles feels incredibly intuitive. The user interface in Besiege doesn't feel awkward or clunky to move around in. Everything is obvious in its function. I haven't run into any of the awkward clipping that I have experienced in some other similar games, and the whole thing feels very quick. When building your vehicle, you're building it directly in front of your goal. All you have to do is finish your vehicle, and then hit the space bar to test it out. So while your first few vehicles might be miserable failures, they'll be failures you'll be done with very quickly. So when something does work in Besiege, it's satisfying because you definitely put work into it, but you're not exhausted because you didn't spend several hours flipping back and forth between building and testing. On the whole, I'm very satisfied with Besiege. The game is currently in alpha version 0.02, and is currently for Windows PC only. The developers do have plans to release the game on both Mac and Linux sometime soon. You can check out the game's official site, besiege.spiderlinggames.co.uk. You can also check the game out on Steam right now. Be sure to stick with Blackman and Robin, as we'll have more coverage of Besiege as it is further developed. You can follow us on Twitter at Blackman and Robin, or you can visit our site blackmanandrobin.com. There you'll get the latest game news, previews, interviews, and reviews. And if you follow me at Jordan_Cameron, you'll get my other views.